Hey everybody, we've got some exciting news for fans of Cyberpunk and anyone else who's looking forward to the release of Cyberpunk 2077. We've been waiting a long time for 2077, but we won't be waiting a long time for the next game in CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk universe. According to Polish financial website Bankier.pl, the next major project from CD Projekt Red will also be a Cyberpunk game. It will be a large AAA RPG, and it will release by 2021, within 2 years of the release of Cyberpunk 2077. We also have some news about the multiplayer component of Cyberpunk 2077. If you've been following our channel for a long time, you'll recognize some of this as stuff we've talked about before, but we've got some official confirmation now of stuff we've been predicting, plus some pretty exciting new info as well. And just a quick add-in update here, after I recorded the voiceover for this video, some new articles started popping up that appear to debunk some of what was being reported about the Bankier article. As for the specifics of these newer articles, I'll get into all that near the end of this video. We sought out our own translation of the Bankier article to try and clarify what was really being said, so be sure to stick around for that. And don't forget to slam that like button if you appreciate the Cyberpunk content. Alright, I'll get into all the details in a moment, but first I want to just note, as always, that the stated plans of a game development company are by no means any kind of a guarantee. Game development is highly iterative, things are very often in flux, plans can change and delays do happen. However, it is looking pretty certain that we won't be waiting another 5 years for CDPR's next major release. Way back in 2016, before they had finished releasing expansions for The Witcher 3, CD Projekt outlined a 5-year plan which included the release of a second AAA RPG in addition to Cyberpunk 2077 by 2021. And this plan hasn't changed. They haven't backtracked, and in fact the latest news confirms that this is still their goal. According to Bankier.pl, CD Projekt President and CEO Adam Kiciński recently reported that CD Projekt Red is working on 2 more Cyberpunk projects in addition to Cyberpunk 2077. Bear in mind that the quotes I'm taking from this article have been translated from Polish to English via Google Translate, so some of the wording might be a little strange. We're working on 3 Cyberpunk things, says Kiciński, over the main game and over 2 more. These are 3 teams. We are also working on Gwent, and we still have unplayed game in Spoko. So we have 5 working teams, 3 working on Cyberpunk. Alright, let's break this down a little bit. Kiciński appears to be saying that they have 5 projects in active development right now, one of which is the ongoing development of the Witcher spin-off card game Gwent. There's also a project in the works at Spoko, the mobile development company that CD Projekt acquired in 2018. What this project is, we have no idea. But according to a company press release from August of 2018, the people of Spoko approached CD Projekt with an interesting idea based on one of CD Projekt's existing brands, which suggests that it has something to do with either The Witcher or Cyberpunk. Although Kiciński's wording seems to imply that it's not a Cyberpunk-related project, I wouldn't rule that out entirely. It could be some sort of tie-in or spin-off similar to what Gwent is to The Witcher. We don't typically call Gwent a Witcher game, even though it is rooted in that universe. In any case, once we've accounted for Gwent and the Spoko project, that leaves only the 3 remaining Cyberpunk things that CDPR is working on. One is Cyberpunk 2077, but what are the other 2? Kiciński confirmed that one of their 5 active teams, and one of the 3 working on Cyberpunk things, is a team of roughly 40 people at their studio in Wrocław, which they acquired in 2018. This team is working on some sort of multiplayer mode for Cyberpunk 2077. So one of the 3 Cyberpunk things is Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer. We also know that the AAA RPG scheduled to be released by 2021 must also be a Cyberpunk project. Company CFO Piotr Najlubowicz confirms this in the same Bankier article. Our next big project will also be in the Cyberpunk universe, and we're already working on it and treating it as a really big and innovative project for us. What we don't know with absolute certainty is whether or not this AAA Cyberpunk RPG is the Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer project. There appear to be 2 possibilities here. One is that Wrocław is working on a multiplayer expansion for Cyberpunk 2077, and another completely separate Cyberpunk RPG is being planned for release in 2021. Or, it's possible that a multiplayer version of Cyberpunk 2077 will release in 2021 as a standalone game, and that they've got another Cyberpunk project in the works that we know nothing about at this point. And when I say project here, I'm not necessarily talking about a full-blown game, although it definitely could be one. And here's where I'm going to pivot and start to talk about the new articles that are attempting to debunk the idea that CDPR is working on multiple Cyberpunk games. Most of the confusion seems to surround Kiciński's statement about cyberpunk things and whether or not he's talking about 3 separate games. In English, it's ambiguous, but the original quote was spoken in Polish. We've received confirmation from several Polish-speaking individuals that the original Polish wording really does sound like he's talking about 3 separate games. I'm not going to attempt to read the Polish here, but according to one of our own Polish-speaking contacts, the statement should read, "We're working on the main game and on 2 more games." Even though the final word games isn't in the Polish, apparently the wording makes it clear that this is what Kiciński means. Furthermore, when he says cyberpunk things, he appears to be using the word cyberpunk as an adjective, referring to the genre or world of cyberpunk, rather than to the game Cyberpunk 2077. At first, I thought the articles reporting things like CD Projekt Red working on 3 Cyberpunk universe games were reading too much into Kiciński's statement. But now that multiple Polish-speaking sources have confirmed that this is the actual meaning of Kiciński's words, the reporting now seems 100% reasonable. Whether this was what Kiciński actually meant to say is a separate issue, and I only bring it up as an issue because Kiciński's own company seems to want us to believe that he meant something different. Speaking to GameSpot, an unnamed CD Projekt rep gave this statement: "We currently have a total of 5 teams working on a number of projects, with 3 focusing on the development of Cyberpunk 2077. These include CD Projekt Red Warsaw and Kraków, who are handling the main game, as well as the Wrocław studio, where around 40 industry specialists are engaged in technology R&D. The quote goes on to mention Gwent and the Spoko project, which I addressed earlier in this video. Many articles, including the one I pulled this screenshot from, are taking this to mean that CDPR's next game is not a Cyberpunk project. It was at this point in my research that I got frustrated to the point of wanting to pull the plug on the internet. No! Even if you take the quote completely at face value, that is not what the rep said at all. Even if multiple games isn't what Kiciński was talking about, they're completely ignoring the quote from Najlubowicz, where he states, "Our next big project will also be in the Cyberpunk universe, and we're already working on it." In this case, it appears that the word project does mean a full-blown game, since this would be a pretty overblown statement if it's merely referring to some aspect of Cyberpunk 2077. Moving past that though, if we dig a little deeper, it looks like this statement might be an attempt to perform a little bit of communications cleanup. Perhaps Kiciński said a little more than he meant to. What leads us to suspect this is the fact that the Warsaw and Kraków teams, which are both working on the, quote, main game, are being counted as 2 separate teams in this case. But in Kiciński's case, he mentions 3 cyberpunk things, again using cyberpunk as an adjective, and again thank you to our Polish friend for pointing that out. He mentions 3 things that they're working on, and specifically says that one of those things is the main game. So these 2 quotes are either using different definitions for the term main game, or they're counting their teams differently, and when you take into account the fact that they're supposed to have another game out by 2021, and the quote from Najlubowicz that they're already working on their next major Cyberpunk project, it really starts to look like they do have another Cyberpunk game in the works that they're just not wanting to talk about yet. A game company's long-term plans are never set in stone, especially a company like CD Projekt Red, whose official release date for Cyberpunk 2077 was when it's ready, right up until E3 of this year. Sometimes they don't want to let us in on those plans too early, partly because they want to release the information on their own terms, and partly because those plans could change. What we do know is that we won't be waiting years and years for more Cyberpunk content. In addition to expansions and possibly mod support for Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt is planning to release an entire second game within a couple of years. Yes, this seems ambitious and it could get delayed, but CD Projekt is a forward-thinking company that plans ahead. Their goal for the Cyberpunk IP has been to create an entire universe, not just a single game. And a lot of the groundwork laid in Cyberpunk 2077 will be reusable in future games, allowing smaller teams to produce larger amounts of content. If all goes according to plan, we should be seeing a steady flow of Cyberpunk content over the next few years. So there you go, some pretty exciting stuff for the Cyberpunk franchise in general. Don't forget to slam that like button if you appreciated this content, and subscribe for tons more Cyberpunk 2077 content. This has been Ash for the Triple S League. I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell, and then check out some of these other videos. Find the link to our Discord server and other important stuff in the description below.
Rotated.